was the point where Gary, or was it you guys that were like, listen, we need to start a winery?
You know what? It was a combination of things happened. I think one, we, meaning VaynerMedia, worked with so many large Fortune 500 clients, especially in the consumer packaged goods world. And so many of those brands were coming to VaynerMedia and saying, hey, we're losing market share to all these startup companies who are operating exclusively direct to consumer. They're basically throwing up a Shopify site, and overnight they're becoming our competitors because they know how to build a 500,000 million person audience on Instagram, and they're doing real business as a product of that. So it's death by a million cuts, right? A lot of what we were doing was helping the big brands counteract those people.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we were saying to ourselves, well, we can do everything that they're doing even better than they are. So why not just do it ourselves?
Go there! Boom! All right, so we're recording here in the Vayner offices, and thank you guys for having me. We're in Gary V's office, and we're here to talk about a new wine project that Gary V launched. But I wanted to kind of start the conversation with how the three of us ended up right here. So I'm curious to hear your story about how it all went down and when the emails started coming across.
Yeah. So so like you said, we launched a new brand, Empathy Wines, a direct-to-consumer winery. We, unlike a lot of brands, I think our launch strategy was a little bit differently, where we started soliciting offers. So in exchange for wine purchases, we would give out something alternative. And a lot of the times that was Gary's time. In other cases, that was marketing help in the form of a 4Ds consulting session that VaynerMedia hosts, which is how we ended up getting connected. Yeah. And kind of the rest is history, and here we are.
Crazy run. So when he launched the wines on like Facebook Live, I was watching it, and I could tell like there was like a little bit of like, I think he was surprised that there were some issues with the website, I think, to start, and then he was kind of like surprised with the sales coming in. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna buy it, so I might as well just do it now. So I purchased the Empathy Wine Club, which is the 3-case pack, and then just wrote on the Facebook Live and just said, hey, Gary, can't wait, like excited about these, and I was in my like office just kind of finishing up the video, and he's like, I gotta go, and Dan Cox, thank you so much for your purchase, we really appreciate it. And I'm like, oh shit, this is my opportunity. So I like shot him an email, and I was like, hey Gary, I just ordered, I'm excited, I've got a podcast, a little bit of a following from the Bachelor world, and a lot of people that drink wine, would love to have you on. And then it was like radio silence, like didn't hear anything back. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'm like not worried about it. And then about a week later, I see this tweet, same thing. I'm in my office like 8:00 at night, and it's like Gary saying, hey, I'm looking for like creating a barter system. We'll have something for you guys soon for the wines. And I replied and said, well, 4Ds is part of it. I'm going to have a lot of wine to give out next year. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Gary started following me. I'm like, holy shit. It was like, Gary replied to your tweet. And I'm like, holy shit. And then I got an email from you, and it was just like, it was madness. Yeah. So, and then we made the purchase, and now here we are.
Nice. Yeah. And that was what? 10 days ago,
yeah,
maybe?
It was quick. And you're like, there's a 4Ds in LA in like 2 days. I'm like, I need a little bit of time. So, I'm glad it all worked out. But yeah, let's do introductions. So, Jon, if you want to go first, how'd you end up here sitting in the VaynerMedia offices working on a wine with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah. How much time do we have? No. So my personal background was in the wine industry. So I had finished undergrad right around the time of the 2007 recession when nobody was hiring anybody. And I, at a young age, had been a little bit bit by the wine bug, and I decided I would go head first into that. Started reading as many textbooks as I could. Eventually thought I would go on to become a master sommelier and spend my time managing restaurants or doing something like that. One late night I was up watching YouTube videos, and I stumbled across Gary V in the early days of his career with Wine Library TV. I'll spare you all the nitty-gritty details, but after a whole lot of emails, a whole lot of tweets, I was able to meet him at the Boston Wine Expo in 2008. And then a few months later, after a lot of perseverance, he ultimately offered me a job I didn't have a job description and didn't know exactly what I was doing, but felt it in my gut it would be a smart move. Picked up and moved to New York. Worked with him in a couple of different tech-focused wine projects for years. And then ultimately VaynerMedia, which was being built in the same office that I worked out of, just started undergoing some hockey stick growth. Later thought that would be a smart career move. So I set aside my wine dreams, helped grow the agency through a really interesting growth stick time. And then later ended up here. And I'll let Nate actually tell his story before we get into the nitty gritty details.
Yeah, so I'm Nate. I've kind of a similar story. I was interested in wine as like a 17, 18-year-old for some reason. My best friend's family kind of opened wine on a nightly basis.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like, this is
so
just,
not your parents, but when you went over to your friend's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is fascinating. I went to Europe with them and just kind of got exposed to the culture of wine, just found it very unique and interesting, and came back home as like a sophomore in college, found Wine Library TV. I said, who is this character?
Yeah.
I want to learn from him. Sent him a random email. It was like, dear Mr. Vaynerchuk, my name's Nathan. I like wine. Went out and interned at Wine Library about 10 years ago. He liked me, brought me back for another internship the following year where Jon here was my manager.
Nice.
Which is where we
all comes full circle.
Kicked off our long relationship. And so worked at that wine startup called Corked, and then again, kind of similar to Jon here, just followed his career. I worked at VaynerMedia for 7 or 8 years, started as Gary's assistant, then ran one of his book launches for Jab, 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 Right Hook, and then worked in the operations side of VaynerMedia for about 4 or 5 years.
Nice.
And so this whole wine project was kind of coming full circle of, we both kicked it off with Gary in the wine side of things. We knew that we wanted to build a brand together, and wine was kind of where all three of us had passions, interests, and we thought it was a ripe space for some disruption.
That's awesome. So so you met by tweet, you met by email.
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out how many people do you think Gary's hired through Twitter versus
quite a bit. Like I was Gary's assistant for quite some time, so I saw that come through all the time, and he responds to more tweets than emails these days for sure. And it's something where if it just right timing and catches his eye and you can back it up, it's definitely happened many times before.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our first hire actually came from an Instagram DM. So we do everything except LinkedIn. Yeah. We like to stay away from the platforms where most people recruit.
No Indeed, no LinkedIn. We're going, we want direct response.
Yeah.
I love it. So you guys are working in VaynerMedia, you've had the experience in the wine business. I got excited. I thought it was going to be a Shopify. When was the point where Gary, or was it you guys that were like, listen, we need to start a winery?
You know what? It was a combination of things happened. I think one, we meaning VaynerMedia worked with so many large Fortune 500 clients, especially in the consumer packaged goods world. Mm-hmm. And so many of those brands were coming to VaynerMedia and saying, hey, we're losing market share to all these startup companies who are operating exclusively direct to consumer. They're basically throwing up a Shopify site, and overnight they're becoming our competitors because they know how to build a 500,000 million person audience on Instagram, and they're doing real business as a product of that. So it's death by a million cuts, right? A lot of what we were doing was helping the big brands counteract those people.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we were saying to ourselves, well, we can do everything that they're doing even better than they are. So why not just do it ourselves?
You had the full case study.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, and I don't want to speak for Nate, but I think both of us are much more entrepreneurial. And when you watch a company grow to 700, 800, 900 people and it becomes a really well-oiled machine, ultimately it's harder to scratch that entrepreneurial itch. Yeah. And so I think we were probably both looking for a little bit of building something from the ground up again.
Yeah, and I think for us too, Gary knew kind of our aspirations and what we wanted to do, and so I think a lot of people in this building are entrepreneurial, and so a lot of it is grooming people to become the leaders of a new DTC business, or if VaynerX bought a piece of a business and they needed some, a CMO for that thing over there. And so over the past, 7-8 years of working with Gary, it's kind of been like a grooming process to get to where we are.
No, I get it. I just went through 4Ds and I'm like, I feel like I need to come intern on Gary's team just for 3 months to like get it all to soak in and resonate. So that's crazy. So whose idea was it? Was it Gary's? Was it your guys's? The idea for the winery.
We've brought it up to him a couple times.
Okay.
I think it's probably been in the back of his head
and
too.
Was it always coming from you guys as it needs to be a D2C? Like we've got to do
I think that was just
consumer?
the most logical. Like as we looked at the industry and the business, it made sense for us, especially like Jon said, like with all these big brands they were seeing and how people were building digitally native brands, and no one really has done that in the wine space.
Yeah.
So I think it was us kind of in his ear, and then finally timing worked out.
Yeah.
I think for Gary, probably long before we met him, the idea of making his own wine and really building that as a brand was
it's always
kind of
been there.
Yeah, it's probably been tucked away, and it's probably just timing being right and having the right people in place to be able to help him with it.
And Wine Library, his father's store in New Jersey, they can only legally ship to 11, 13 different states.
Okay.
And as
Because
a wine,
of distributor laws
and as a winery, we can now ship to 44 states legally. So it allows Gary to reach a much bigger audience that he wasn't able to sell wine before, and give them a really good product too. So.
And who knows, maybe international next year.
Yeah, I heard that was coming. So what was the catalyst? What was the final straw that broke the camel's back that was like, we're doing this?
Yeah, was funny. It wasn't that long ago, so keep me honest, Nate, but I think it was, we were having wine in the Hamptons one night.
I've heard of worse ways to start a company.
And both of us were, I think, thinking about what's next in kind of our career evolution.
I think we came to the Hamptons like wanting to talk about it too.
I think it was premeditated.
Premeditated.
Yeah, and I think Gary had that rare second or third glass of wine and kind of bid on it. And so we took it and ran with it. We did a ton of homework. We spent probably 2 or 3 months just understanding the compliance and the legal aspects of what it really takes to be able to do this. And then we're able to come to him with a more of a like fleshed out business plan of if we're going to do this is kind of what's required.
So how far was that initial concept, like that business plan, to where we're at today? Did you guys follow it completely, or did things change along the path?
There's been a lot of iterations. I mean, if anyone goes to the site, like as of now, you can buy in a 3-pack subscription, 6-pack or 12-pack. We debated, do we only sell cases? Do we sell one bottle? Do we charge for shipping? Do we don't charge for shipping? Do we want to go into all 44 states off the bat? And so a lot of these things were debated over time. I think with Gary and us and kind of where we came from, we're not romantic about a lot of things, so we kind of want the customers to help us get to where we need to be. And so, when May comes and we look back and we have a ton of feedback, we might sell one bottle orders. I'd say the general concept stayed the same.
Okay.
We're a direct-to-consumer winery. We want to give the customer a $40 bottle of wine that's $20 shipped to their door, and we want to deliver on that. It's called Empathy Wines. I don't know if we've said that yet.
No, I think we mentioned at the beginning. But we can plug it now.
So it's called Empathy Wines.
Talk about brand marketing. Come on.
One more time. What's the brand again?
Empathy Wines.
Empathywines.com. Empathy Wines.
It'll be tagged in the description.
It only took us 20 minutes to get there.
It's a long-form sales letter. We finally got people to buy it.
And so Gary talks a lot about empathy in business and how that has been a core tenet in building his businesses. But on the back of the bottle, it says empathy for the farmer, empathy for you. And so we're sourcing grapes from really amazing growers in the kind of surrounding Napa areas, Lake County, Mendocino, and Lodi. And one of our big missions with this too is to really tell their stories and help build their brands, and again, deliver on that value prop of a $40 wine for $20 to their door. So empathy is kind of permeating throughout the brand as much as we can.
For sure. From farmers all the way through the process, right?
Yeah, farmers to the consumer.
So what was the process of looking for the regions, or what came first? Was it varietals? Was it regions? Were you thinking about going just to one winery? How'd you guys make that decision?
So we started with the consumer and kind of the target price point.
Okay, and then worked back.
And then we worked backwards from there. So for us, we wanted to make a wine that was worth double what ultimately the consumer was going to pay for it. And after doing a little homework on kind of the economics and knowing what that sweet spot price point is when people are thinking about a premium bottle of wine, but nothing that's so unattainable that they can't drink it on a common Tuesday night. Kind of landed on, let's sell a wine for $20 that would otherwise cost about $40 if they were to buy it at their local wine store.
Yeah.
And so then the fun started to happen, where how do we actually find the partners and the growers that we'll work with to be able to do that? For the most part, Napa Valley itself and even a lot of parts of Sonoma are going to be totally price prohibitive. They've built their brands of those regions to a point where they can sell grapes for a really expensive price. It doesn't necessarily always warrant that. A lot of the time it does. And for us, it was created an opportunity. There are so many amazing wine regions in the surrounding area that are really capable of producing world-class wines, but because people haven't heard of Lodi and because people haven't heard of pockets of Mendocino, it created an opportunity for us. Like, we could, one, help tell their stories, help market their brands, and meanwhile produce a really badass bottle of wine for a really good price, on top of having the unique business model. So for us, it's kind of a double bubble, I guess, of hey, the business model itself allows us to save you money, but then we're going to introduce you to these new regions that will also help you kind of discover new grapes and new regions to taste from.
That's awesome. And did the farmers come first? Did the winemaking come next? What was the process there?
So we got in touch with John Wilkinson, who owns this facility called Bin to Bottle.
Okay.
And we were calling a lot of different people, a lot of different wineries, telling them what we were trying to do, telling them our story. And John got on the phone with us and like off the bat knew what we wanted to do, like was sold on the mission, understood the value proposition, wanted to be a part of the story. He's been in the Valley for quite some time. And so we basically explained, we want to produce a $40 bottle that costs $20. Can you help us get to the right people?
Was there any kind of look like, oh God, you guys are going to destroy the industry, or was it?
I think that's why he was excited about it. He's like, this could be big, and I want to be a part of the story in as small or as big of a way as possible. And so he was a really great partner for us early on, introduced us to the right people, and then we went out to Lake County, Mendocino, Lodi with Gary. We told all of these growers and winemakers our story and what we wanted to build and how we wanted to build it and how we wanted them to be a part of it. And the ones that we're working with were really bought in, understood the mission, wanted us to help them tell their story too. So we met them, just kicked off the relationship, and we stay in touch with them quite a bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and understanding how the vintage is going. We have a full-time winemaker that's pretty much dedicated to our
project. That's what I was going to ask. So is the winemaker going around kind of testing the grapes or is there everything in barrel now?
So he had been doing a lot of routine vineyard visits, tasting the fruit, making sure it was coming along nicely, and then as much as we sit in New York, he's obviously based in Napa, but we have
it's a rough place to go into business.
I know, huh? But we'd like to get out more often than we do. But it's pretty cool. We have a long text thread with him where he was sending us photos of the grapes on the vines and where they are in ripeness and letting us know how development was going and when they would be picking which grapes from which vineyards. He's been absolutely awesome. Right now, the wine itself is all in barrel and tank.
Nice.
So we'll be heading out to Napa next month to do
some
barrel tastings and blendings and kind of get ready for the first wine that'll be ready, the rosé.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, in this whole process, so this is one of the things I was most curious about when I saw it. How did you guys decide to do the 3 different varietal, white, rosé, red? What was the kind of thought process behind this?
So, a combination of things. One, I think we recognized that there was a huge industry trend shifting towards blends, rather than necessarily having the brand, so to speak, sit with Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir. The market had kind of woken up to the idea of blends in general as a style of wine. And then 2, I think we went more down, and this is a little bit for more like the wine nerds that are maybe listening, but more in the same way that champagne is made than in other regions of the world.
So explain that for those who don't know about how champagne's made.
Yeah, so for the vast majority of champagnes that you buy, they're buying different types of grapes. So a lot of the time it's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, and that's where we're going really geeky, but different types of grapes blended from different vineyards all around the region.
In different years too, right?
Different years a lot of the time, yeah. And the idea is that you create a house style. So you have a lot of product consistency year over year. And it also allows you to hedge against a bad vintage. Because if one vineyard didn't produce really good grapes, you would then heavy up on another vineyard that did. We kind of took that philosophy and ran with it.
Yeah.
Where year over year, our rosé, it's not going to taste totally different. We want to have a house style, but we want to be able to have the flexibility to say, you know what, this year our Syrah vineyard from Mendocino just didn't quite perform as well as we wanted it to, so we're going to heavy up on another type of grape from another region that we're sourcing from. So it gives us flexibility to make sure we're making the best possible product every year.
Is that hence why? So they're going to be labeled California, right?
Yeah.
So you can keep your flexibility between the regions.
Yep.
I love
exactly.
it. So being from the wine business and working for the Gallo family and in touch with a lot of winemakers, they always told me they're like blends are like a winemaker's dream because they hated being restricted to one block in a single vintage. Like hated it because like you said, if something was wrong, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Their whole lot is going to be done. So that's really cool you guys went that route. Was there any worry about, there's a majority... Do you know where I'm going here? There's a majority of the wine consumer base, right? And I don't know the exact statistics, but there are red drinkers and there are white drinkers exclusively.
Yep.
Were you guys worried about that launching a white rosé and red to even get into the club?
Yeah. I'll say yes. So basically we're releasing the wines when they're ready. So the rosé will be first, the white will be soon after, and the red will be a few months after that. Right now we're selling only subscription model. We really want people to kind of taste all three of them. We think that the white is actually, I think, something that we're really excited about, where it's won't be your traditional white, but something that we think can really bring some cool value and people will have fun tasting it. That being said, after the rosé is released, we'll be selling a la carte for the rosé, and so if anyone just wants to heavy up on rosé, we'll be able to sell that way. Same with the white, same with the red, and so for the first 4 months, it's subscription. We really want people to try everything, see what they like, and then potentially heavy up on it. But they'll have the opportunity to buy just red, just white, just rosé.
Buy more of what they like.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I'm still waiting for my Shopify over your guys' here.
I need to turn my sound on.
Yeah, get it going. We got a competition. It'll be the new drinking game. Every time you get a sale on Shopify.
That's good.
And then, so you guys, you approach the winemakers, you approach the farmers. Now there's a documentary coming out about these, right? So I've heard.
That's right.
Yep.
This is exclusive.
Should we cut it now?
No, we can talk.
So what's the documentary about? How long was this process? What should people expect to see?
Yeah. I think because Gary lives his life the way he does, pretty much behind a screen behind a lens and having somebody film in front of a lens.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've had the benefit of almost every meeting that we've taken with major business decisions and ideas, and from the day we conceptualized the business right up until where we are today, a lot of it's been on camera. And so for us, we thought it was a great opportunity to, one, give total transparency and visibility into the entire winemaking itself, but also for a lot of people that are more interested in the business and marketing angle, being able to see how we built the business. And a lot of what we're talking about today is the things they'll get even more exposure to in terms of how we made certain decisions on what grapes to source and what partners to work with, and how we built our e-com site and certain decisions pertaining to price point. So it's really going to be kind of a behind the scenes look into the building of a business from day one right up until launch and even beyond.
Love it. When do you guys plan on releasing it?
That should be released when the red is released.
Okay. All right. So we got a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be probably August. And I think what we want to do is kind of each vintage have a new documentary.
Got it.
So vintage one will have the kind of idea, through first vintage, and then year 2, year 3, year 4.
Always focused around the reds, or are you going to do it with the whites?
It'll just be the full story. Yeah, so we kind of want to get like the vintage, looking back at it and everything that happened over the past year. And the red we thought was a good time to kind of do a kind of year-end recap on everything. So each year will be the new vintage of the documentary until we kind of have these parts.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so from that content standpoint, has Gary pushed you guys to increase your personal brand, create more content around it? Is there pressure coming down the pipeline?
It's funny, and this is probably terrible for me to say. I'm like the worst self-promoter of all time. Like, I never put out my own personal content.
Do you get pissed when he like copies you on tweets?
No, I don't mind that.
Okay.
Yeah. If it has to do with business, I'm good about it. But at a personal level, I'm definitely not posting as much as I should on Instagram. Definitely not.
It's something we both need to work on.
Do we need an intervention right now?
Yeah. I think it's because we focused on helping him so much for so long that it's not
I'm about to chop up a ton of these clips and put them on. Is what I'm going to do.
We're happy you're here.
That's why we're here.
This is going to give you content up until the release of the documentary.
100%.
So,
it's definitely something that we've talked about, and something that I think both of us need to get better on. Not Shopify either. And so I think that it's something that will continue to ramp up over the next year or two, for sure.
Okay.
Month or two, week or two, day by day.
Day by day. I was surprised that he hasn't hired someone to follow you guys around with the camera yet and start documenting everything.
I mean, I'm focused a lot on like kind of behind the scenes operation side of stuff, so my day won't be super interesting.
Well, and I'll take his standpoint. He would argue that is interesting because that's your truth.
That's true. That is my truth, and I like my truth. But yeah, it's something that you'll see a lot more of over the next couple months.
Okay.
I like the idea. I'm going to hire a videographer.
I think you should. I'm at the point of wanting to do it too. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just see if we get a 3-for-1 deal.
There we go.
So, and then from a platform standpoint, we talked about this a little offline, but you guys chose Shopify. We've done a podcast with some people about Shopify before, but what was the reasoning behind choosing that as a platform instead of creating a completely new format on WordPress or another platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a tech side of things, and from a reporting and analytics, and from an integration side of things, Shopify made a ton of sense for us. Gary's had a good relationship with Harley over the past 5 years or more. And so for us, just looking at the platform and everything that it could do, not Shopify either.
So we think we drink with text too.
We just love the functionality of Shopify. We love the reporting. We loved everything that we could build into it so seamlessly. And so it was kind of like, it wasn't even that big of a decision for us. Yeah. It just felt like the right thing to do. That's where we were going to go. Like we were talking offline a little bit, we're a wine brand, we're an alcohol brand. Shopify doesn't have a ton of expertise or integrations built with that world. So it's something that we're talking to them about and kind of helping them a little bit with the roadmap as DTC wine sales get a lot bigger, especially as the laws have been opening up. More brands have been wanting to sell DTC. And so it's definitely on the radar of Shopify, but it's been a very easy platform to use. It's very customizable. Even for us to just go in on the back end and make quick updates and changes and all that stuff. It's been super easy.
Getting the on your phones.
Yeah.
Best feeling ever.
So how is the process going? We're what, 2 weeks in?
3 weeks?
3 weeks in?
Third week now?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a year.
Yeah. It's
been a year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'm probably losing a little hair and going a little gray.
How many bottles have we gone through in the last month?
Yeah. It's been a cool process. I think we were talking a little bit offline about is the way we've built the brand in the early stages, I think has been alternative. And that's because we're fortunate to have a co-founder in Gary who can quite literally serve as like our media distribution for us, and somebody who's got a ton of clout in the space that we're in, right? Like long before he was the business and marketing guy, he was the wine guy.
Yeah.
So we're kind of playing to that strength. We've been selling a lot of wine pre-order. Unlike most goods, our product right now is sitting in barrel.
Yeah.
And so
gotta turn this off.
We're gonna get there. So it's gonna be another few months before we actually have bottles that we can ship to people. And so with that, we've been super reliant on tapping into his community and people who are trusting of him to pre-order the wine. As well as doing a lot of wine. And so in this case, kind of collaborating with people like yourself on, how do we provide value in alternative ways? I think you can expect come, that February, March timeline, once we're actually ready to release a product, more of what I'll call like traditional digital brand marketing in the form of a lot of brand content.
Well, that's what I was curious about. Like, do you think it was do you think it hurt you guys not having, because I look at it as like when Gary launches something, he's got it out to influencers, everyone's pumping it up. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you guys don't have product at this point.
Yep.
Was that a worry, or was that kind of, we knew this was going to happen? As soon as the rosés hit, it's like game on. Every celebrity is going to be holding up a bottle.
Yeah. I mean, we knew it would be a problem. I think one of the big things that we've talked about is that how wine's a very experiential thing, and people want to taste it and feel it and be a part of it. I think that's why, a lot of tasting rooms exist, so people can go there, taste it, have a story behind why they want to buy this wine. And so we definitely saw that as a big challenge for us, especially in the first 4 months, 5 months, and even so, it'll be more of a challenge too. Like the rosé will be released, but we still want to sell the white and the red, and they won't have, our customers won't have experience with that. And so a lot of it on the early onset is, the trust in Gary. He built a $50-60 million wine retail store because he understood where the good value was for the consumer. And so it's something that we kind of want to replicate in the winery. But as the rosé releases, influencer marketing will be really big for us. Experiential marketing will be really big for us. It's something where we're not naive to the fact that people want to taste wine before they commit to 3, 6, or 12. And so that's definitely going to be a big part of what we're doing.
All right. And so, with that, what are you guys doing right now as far as the promotions go? And then what's going to come basically as soon as the rosés launch?
Yeah. I've spent the last 2 weeks of my life like a scene out of Boiler Room.
The casino part? Or?
It's been a lot of phone calls with, hey, let's make a deal where it sounds like a cliche, but a 1 + 1 = 3. Yep. So what can I
think we had that in our first email.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, how do I find a scenario where we're providing a ton of value to you, in exchange we can get you to buy a lot of wine from us. And so for some people it's been, hey, for a long time I've been thinking about attending the 4Ds at VaynerMedia, and my response is, great, I'm going to be able to provide you a complimentary ticket and sell you wine that you can gift to your clients for the holidays, or throw an event yourself with, or whatever it might be. And so we've seen a lot of success with that, and I think in more cases than not, I actually feel like we've been on the less value receiving end, where we've done deals and
because you haven't delivered anything, so it feels like there's a lot you're just giving up, and you haven't made any shipments yet.
Exactly. So it's actually been, I think, great for the people we're working with, where we're able to provide real value in exchange beyond just delivering them wine.
But we've sold a lot of 3-packs, and I think people are just interested in the brand, want to try it, want to go through the process and understand like what they will be getting. And so the 3-packs have been really successful for us. John's been super focused on the 1 + 1 = 3. But other than that, we've been growing our Instagram account mostly via Gary, but we've had a lot of influencers through the office already, kind of taking photos with some sample bottles that we have, and just trying to start seeding the energy out there about what this is and what we're trying to build. So it's definitely ramping up. Even today, we had a lot of people through the office that have, from the influencer side, that have been interested in it. And I think that's just going to continue until March, when we ship the rosé.
People actually drinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the next step? I know we haven't bottled a single bottle yet, right?
Nope.
But you guys, I'm assuming in the wine business, you're always, looking kind of 3 years out, right? What is the kind of the evolution of this? Do you guys feel like it's going to be a crazy disruption in the wine space? Do you think it's going to take a while for other wineries to kind of get the idea? Are you kind of worried about that, the competition coming into the D2C space?
Yeah, I think, looking at ourselves in the mirror, we're like, whoa, we're producing a ton of wine, and there aren't a whole lot of brands that have pulled this off and sold their entire inventory. Yeah, especially not online. And yet at the same time, there is so much wine that's being produced in the U.S. every single day that we're just a tiny, tiny blip on the radar of most people. I think we want to grow quickly, and we have like really, really big ambitions. At the same time, I think the two things we want to focus on is how do we just make sure we're making really good wine and kind of delivering on that promise. And so like over the next couple months, we're already thinking about 2019 vintage. Which growers are we going to be working more and more with? Stylistically, or how are we going to like tweak with the blends, and what direction do we want to kind of solidify as our style of wine? So I think first and foremost, just how do we make the best wine possible? Because if we don't do that, then none of this actually works.
Yeah. So, what do you guys, what are you most excited about this project? Is it the behind the scenes, working with Gary, developing it from scratch? Is it seeing people drink it and have it, like the one thing I always enjoyed about there's two main things I enjoyed about the wine business, but one is wine is always generally, there's a small percentage, but generally shared with friends and family, right? So you get to enjoy. It was, I think, an old Gallo saying, like, we're so lucky to be invited to your home during your most intimate moments, right? The other thing that's interesting to me about wine is from a consumer product standpoint, it's the most emotional consumer product, I think, out there, right? Because from a science standpoint, it's grape juice, but there's so much emotion tied into it, and history, and tradition, and now technology. So what is it about launching your guys' own wine that you just absolutely love? Like, this is what's getting you up every morning.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have like an actual product in the hands of people. Throughout this whole process, it's been very eye-opening for me, at least, to understand like everything that goes into a single bottle of wine is pretty crazy. Like, our label's very simple, but the label goes through like 9 different or 10 different like printing presses to get where it is. There's corks, there's the juice, there's the bottle. Like, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of manpower to make that single bottle of wine, and to be able to get that in the hands of friends and family is just really cool. Overall, from a business side of things, I think there's a lot of wine, or there's a few wine clubs that have kind of built a digitally native brand, but from building a digitally native wine brand, not really anyone has done that yet.
Yeah.
And so to be kind of on that forefront and to be like kind of the first digitally native singular wine brand, just like the business side, the marketing side of us, is super exciting, and something that definitely gets us up in the morning.
For me, it's I think business is something that's great. Like, I'm just so interested in it. It's a huge passion of mine. But business aside, wine's probably the one thing that I genuinely am emotional about, and it's a huge passion of mine. And I kind of forgot how passionate I was about it until getting back into the business. Even today,
there we go. Cheers to that. For those of you who don't know, you get a cha-ching every time there's a sale, and I win this battle. So,
well done. For me, it was, I had a phone call earlier today with a woman who was planning on buying a good amount of our white wine, and she was going to serve it at her wedding in June. And so to just hear the fact that something we were a part of would actually be featured during her big day. Talk about an emotional, experience, and kind of being invited into somebody's home. It's arguably like her biggest day of her life. So that was pretty cool. It's a pretty cool experience.
That's awesome. So this is what we call the layup. Why should people be joining Club Empathy right now?
Club Empathy. So Club Empathy, we haven't talked a ton about.
So let's talk about the 3 different tiers first.
Yeah. So we sell all of our subscriptions in 3 different increments. You can buy 3 bottles, 6 bottles, or 12 bottles. For those people that order 12 bottles, we're offering a concierge service. So it comes in 2 forms. One is what we're calling SM Som, so a text message based on-demand sommelier service. So if you're out to eat with your girlfriend and you have no idea what wine to order on a list, you literally take a photo of the menu and send it to us and say, what's good here?
Yeah.
What should I consider
And here's
buying?
my budget.
Yeah, and here's my budget. Exactly. And we'll be there ready to reply. We actually hired a woman who worked in some of the best restaurants of New York City to come on and help make those recommendations and kind of power the back end. So there's an actual human doing that. And then the other piece is wine vacations. So if you have a trip planned to Napa Valley and you don't know where to start, you literally text us and we'll take care of the rest. We'll help you book your appointments. In many cases, get you either complimentary or deeply discounted tastings at some of the best tasting rooms in Napa. Help you book restaurants, really handhold you through the whole process, which if you start to do the math, that in and of itself is worth the money quick, alone. Right? Yep. Yeah. We've already had some of our earliest subscribers take us up on some of those services. We're getting some really cool feedback.
I mean, I've got a couple Club Empathy, and I need to start taking advantage of this. I think.
Text us.
Hit us up.
We're there for you.
Nora will be ready. Yeah.
Is she solely answering these, or does she have a team? How's this working?
It's her. Yeah.
Just her.
Yeah, just her. Just her
on
right
her
now.
phone, or is it?
Oh, we're using a customer service platform called Customer with a K, which integrates with Shopify as well. And then we're just powering text messages through Customer through Twilio.
Okay.
And she's there
on demand.
It's
crazy.
There's some kind of hour parameters around it, but she's a hard worker and it's just great.
2 a.m. I need to know what bottle of wine to open.
Yeah. It's been fun. We've had a few people, I think especially on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Big wine drinking holiday.
It's crazy.
We had some people hitting us up the night before at 2 a.m. and she was awesome. She was on top of it, especially with the West Coast hours. That's where it could get a little tricky.
Yeah. So for, regarding the wine business as a whole, obviously there's a lot of ego that comes along with it. Probably the thing I like least about the wine business, right? I think with Club Empathy and the Empathy Wines in general, you guys are breaking down those barriers, right? Like, don't be concerned about don't get caught up in the details, right? So what is it about, Empathy Wines and Club Empathy in general that is a reason to buy? So like, why should people look at this instead of, well, I go to, Trader Joe's or, my grocery store and buy a bottle once a week?
Yeah.
Like, why should they join the club?
Yeah. I think I'll give you a lot of answers. I think one is a lot of the value proposition we've talked about where it's a better wine for less money. There's two, the supporting the people behind it. So the growers that we're working with, we want to bring their story front and center. And I think over the next few months, anybody who pays attention to our brand will start to have kind of a newfound appreciation for wine. It's not just a product like you buy off the store shelf. It's not just like a bar of soap. Like, the way that product got into the bottle required a ton of legwork from like genuinely good people that are farming vineyards in California. And so kind of bringing them to the forefront. And I think finally, like, what's interesting is if we pull off what we want, it's not just going to be somebody who loves red wine who would otherwise buy a $40 bottle of Napa Cabernet. We're going to be opening this up to people who might otherwise be drinking beer, might otherwise be drinking, something totally different that finally is like, wait, you know what? Like, I want to give this a try. I want to open my eyes and kind of experiment with wine, who might otherwise have viewed it as a stodgy product that like their rich uncle drinks, but they don't want to get involved with. So,
got it.
Anything else?
I agree.
You concur.
Yeah.
You concur. So I think we got to wrap actually here in a little bit. But so for people that want to find out more about Empathy Wines or you guys in general, where's the best place for them to go?
We should start building our personal brand.
I'm like lining these ones up for you guys. Like, please tell me you have your handles down.
My Instagram handle is terrible though. I've been trying to get Gary to change it.
Wait, why can't you change it?
Because someone already has it, but they're private, but they have like 17 followers.
Have you messaged them?
I've messaged them and then they went private. They have 17 followers. They've never gained a single follower over 5 years.
Have you just sent them a DM saying,
how much do you want for your handle? Yes, I have.
And how much did you offer?
I didn't even get to the offer because he just blocked me.
You're blocked.
I don't know if I'm blocked or he switched to private, but after I DM'd him, I could not see the profile anymore. I would offer, it's Nate S.
Nate S. So Nate S. So if you're listening.
So I'm Nate S on Twitter.
Okay.
And on Instagram, I'm NSCHEROT, which is just not what I want it to be.
Okay.
And
wait, so you're going for Nate S. Have you looked to go for just Nate?
I'm not aiming that high.
I mean, why not, though?
Well, I'm pretty sure the guy that has @Nate in his profile says, "Don't ask me how much I want for this domain or this handle." So Nate S is the second best. But yeah, Nate S on Twitter, NSCHEROT on Instagram. But for the business, if you go to empathywines.com, wines plural, we have a really cool video there that kind of explains everything that we're doing. A lot of information about the farmers that we're buying our grapes from, a lot of information about the wine. So empathywines.com, and then @empathywines on everything else, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
We did a better job about doing consistent branding
I still want to get back to, what about like Nate Empathy or Empathy Nate? We can do.
That's interesting.
I mean, there's some options you have. We don't need to wait for Nate S to shoot us a DM back.
But I need Nate S to shoot me a DM back. I'm trying to keep it consistent across the board.
Nate S on Instagram. If you're listening, please call VaynerMedia and
there's a deal to be made.
How much wine would you give up for Nate S?
A fair amount. Don't tell John.
How many club empathies?
I mean, he'll get every Napa recommendation possible.
Yeah. This guy's hooked
up. This guy's got the wine hookup for life.
He'll end up owning part of the company just for Nate S.
I mean, he doesn't post on Instagram. It should be mine.
It's the worst.
We have friends over at Facebook.
Yeah, we'll get
it. Shoot someone a note. Let's get Nate S kicked off.
Out of control.
I think he was posting inappropriate content. We need to remove him from.
Yeah, I think he's posting inappropriate content. He's underage. All of the terms of service have been violated.
Creepy guy that went private with 17 followers. Like, come on.
Now I'm never getting it. Yeah. I'm finished.
And then what about you, John?
I did a better job than Nate. I'm Trouty across all channels.
I noticed that. Did that cost money?
So growing up, I was Trout. That was always my nickname. My last name's Troutman. When I moved to New York, Gary latched onto Trouty for some reason, and I thought I should rebrand myself to whatever he wanted. So I had a friend that worked at Twitter. He helped me get Trouty on Twitter. And then Instagram, again, we had a friend at Instagram who helped me get Trouty on Instagram.
I need these friends.
How come you're not sharing?
No, he's not sharing friends.
Friends in high places. So he used to be Trout Monster, and then I was able to kind of hone in on one more concise name.
So you didn't have to pay for any of those?
No, free of charge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'd give up wine too.
Yeah.
I will give up wine.
Yeah. I think so. We exchanged a couple emails back and forth, and like every time I think I responded to you, it was like started with Trouty, and I'm like, I can't do that. I gotta go ahead. John, here we go. Let's set this up. So, well, thank you guys again so much for having me. Anything else you want to tell the audience before we go?
Try our wines. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Instagram and Twitter, and genuinely want people's feedback because it matters.
I think we have some seasons of Bachelor and Bachelorette coming up, and some viewing parties that I think you guys will hopefully nail down. Some big viewing parties out there.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much again. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers,
guys.